If we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. So today, we kind of reserved this meeting for a continuation of if we had any leftover on DPW and engineering and conservation, but I think we did a fair enough job going through those items at the last meeting, and frankly, I think Bill Hurley and Mr. Marsilio are going to be at a police commission meeting on Villa Avenue today, so they weren't going to be available. So we have town plan and zoning. Jim's here to discuss one item that he's working on, and then we were going to do the update on town projects, and then a report and status on the ARPA and approved capital projects. So Jim, do you want to sit there, and whatever you want to do?
Where would you like me?
If you're more comfortable sitting, please feel free.
You might need a mic to get the recording.
That one is on.
Oh, yeah.
Is that one on?
Green light is on. Hello.
Answer them.
So the only project we have, it's an ARPA-funded project. It's just under $152,000 for our update of our plan of conservation and development and restructuring of our zoning regulations. We've got our consultant team on board. We are about, as of their last invoice, we're about 28, just under 30% in terms of the total billing. So it's ongoing. We've just launched an online workshop. Hopefully, all those you folks that are on boards and commissions got a blast email about that would have told you that we want your participation in this online workshop. So please look for that. We'd welcome your participation. But we are ongoing, on track, and I'm happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Jim, do you want to talk about Camden Street, that project that we have slated for 24?
We do have, let's see where that is. Oh, okay. We do have an item, there's a piece of property that is on the market on Camden Street. It is 3 parcels in total. It's owned by an estate. It's marketed. It's in a floodway within the Rooster River. It's in an area that really ought not to support multifamily development. And we have a commitment from the property owner, and we've applied for a FEMA grant for the acquisition of the property. So if that is successful, we would acquire the property and demolish the existing improvements and own it for any potential. It basically as a to remove an existing flood-prone property out of the floodplain. So that's I don't know exactly, the number is $642,000, but the reimbursement on that, if it goes through, is over $600, so it's a net cost of like $40,000.
Right, and there's some in-kind contributions from the town.
That's a good one.
So the property owner is desirous of us proceeding with that. We have an application pending with FEMA for an acquisition grant.
Is there any questions?
Questions on either?
What's the acreage, or you said it was 3 parcels?
It's not a large property. It's large enough that it would support a 3-family dwelling. Right now, it's a single-family dwelling and a detached garage. We've had lots of inquiries from folks, oh, it's for sale at a low price. I said, yeah, it's for sale for a low price because you really can't build anything here because it's in a floodway, and we're not trying, and there's a large, they have to prove that there would be essentially a 0 displacement, which is going to be very difficult for anybody to achieve. So we think it's prudent to take a flood-prone property out of the floodplain, and it could be a model project for potentially others down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And the 642 includes demo and purchase?
Yes.
would you expect to hear about the FEMA grant, whether or not we received it? The timing on that?
I don't have information sitting here on what the timing of that is. I can, if that's, we can reach out to our folks up at Dennis and see if they've got a timeline for us, and we can report back.
Thank you.
I have a question. Not necessarily what's on your list, but could you just help us understand, or help me understand maybe, what is the universe of opportunities that you look at? How would you, how do things come to your attention? How do things make their way onto this list? What sorts of other initiatives would you be looking at in the future?
Well, in terms of acquisition of property,
Or, yeah, anything else that would sort of come under, money that you would request? So acquisition of property or otherwise?
yeah, we just went through a project that some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with on Villa Avenue.
Yep.
Which wasn't on the radar. It was an opportunity where the homeowner kind of presented to the town saying, hey, I'd like to, this may be developable, but I don't want to see it developed. What's the process to seek out acquisition? So anytime any opportunity like that presents itself, there's a variety of ways we can go. We've got open space money, and in this case, because it's in a flood zone property, there's particular FEMA programs for this type of purpose. So there are multiple tools in the toolbox. It's really more of how do we best capitalize on an opportunity when it presents itself.
Okay, so the opportunities are presenting themselves just by chance, and, then we can figure out how to go forth, or are you actively,
Well, there are some plans, I know in particularly the Villa Avenue piece came out of, that was a plan or a parcel that was identified in the Rooster River flood
Yep.
detention project. While not the prime detention, it was still kind of targeted as a piece. We are working, always working with our conservation colleagues to identify parcels that might be a priority for them for open space acquisition, so trying to keep in tune with that. I know we have a land acquisition commission that's out there that we refer any potential acquisitions to see what their take is.
for right now, nothing else on the radar screen other than what you've got here, this 600 and,
Right, this was a
Gorgeous.
piece that just it came to our attention because we were bombarded with requests from potential suitors. Hey, what can I do with this? And the more we got into it, we're like, there's really not a whole lot you could do with it. Maybe this would be a good target for potential
gotcha.
acquisition.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Mr. Wendt? All right, Mr. Wendt, thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
You're welcome.
All right. We sent to you earlier today a few different documents. One of them was a rerun of the capital projects for the 5-year capital plan. And really, the only difference is that Connie was able to go back to the department heads and, as requested by the group, to just indicate where the estimates come from, the source of the estimates. So we have a sense of how reliable or how accurate they may be. So that's, you'll see that column added into the list. Other than that, there's not too much more to talk about there. I just wanted to put that in front of you guys and let you know what changed.
Right.
So with that, we could go to, let's look at the ARPA projects. There's a document that went out to you giving an update on the ARPA projects. rather than go through project by project, we'll, I think that most of this is pretty self-explanatory. I know in previous meetings, not of this group, but there's a request to put the encumbered amount in there, so we included that. So you can see what's been spent to date, what's encumbered, and what the balance is. I will point out a couple of things. Nonprofit, the COVID recovery assistance, that was, there have been a few more applications that were approved there. And then up above it, the nonprofit mental health, we finalized the final of the 3 contracts this past week. That was signed.
So is that gonna eat up the 150?
The 150, right.
So that'll
right.
be encumbered,
Yep.
okay.
And then on that covert, who is the COVID recovery committee? Who's on that? What? And how do you apply for that?
So how do you apply? I can send you more information. We sent some information out to the Board of Finance and also
But
to.
also, when we did the ARPA presentations, that was all included in that, so we could just send them that.
I can
we
look it
can-
up.
Yeah, because
but-
Julie's on it, and the social services, and Mark, and Barnhart, and they go through the whole,
And I
the whole
think,
process that they put in. I think when we gave the presentation, it was all written out in there about what they do.
Connie is on, Connie's on the
Connie.
commission,
Okay.
so.
And
There is a whole process where a person can come in and apply.
Could you either sit at the table or at the podium?
It's handled through Julie DeMarco, through social services. And basically a person in need, oh, thank you. Oh, Jim turned it off, I'm sorry. A person in need would come to Julie DeMarco and apply. And they would have to give proof of need, and sometimes it's tax returns. They also have to seek out sources of fundings from other sources out there through state and local sources. Sometimes UI will give funding for certain things, food, grants such as that. Anyway, so when the person comes and requests that they have a need, they fill out forms, they give backup. Julie DeMarco researches it, she reviews it, and then she presents it to the board. It's myself, it's Mark Barnhart, and there's several other people on the board, non-government affiliated people. And we review it and we discuss the person's need. The person is anonymous. We never know the person's name or who it is. And we hear the story of what happened to them, why they're in need, and we vote to give them the money that they're requesting. So it's a good service, and it helps a lot of people, and we feel proud to do that.
Have there been any, there's 26 applications approved, have there been any that were denied?
No, we have not denied any.
And this program will be in place until the ARPA money, 2025?
Yeah, I think we'll monitor this, and if we find that, there's a year left, maybe this time next year or so, and, we haven't had much participation, then we will consider, I think, putting an end date on this at some point, because at some point, you're right, we'd have to reallocate the money. At some point, we're going to have to, we don't want to give back the money because we've hit the end date and haven't spent it all. So
Yeah,
we're trying to maximize the use of the money.
There should be an end date, because probably, give yourselves a year maybe or something
Yeah.
to reallocate that money to something else. 'Cause back in
Yeah.
August, I think there was, 61,190 on the last report here that I have, and we spent another 34,000 out of the fund, and there were only 17 applications back then, so.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still got activity.
It still
It does.
has
Yep.
activity.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, any other questions?
For me, thank you.
Would it be possible just in the future, just to get totals for each column, just to see, what's the outstanding balance?
Yes.
Just to kind of know,
What are you looking at? Sorry.
well,
Just the total.
just the totals at the end.
I see where you're-
For each
Total
column,
budgeted, spent, encumbered
Yeah.
balance, yeah.
just to know what, potentially is outstanding. I see like the town Board of Ed fiber optic network, that's going to be reallocated.
Yeah.
I don't know, if discussions have been had already. That's it.
We're starting, but no, not
I mean, it's a significant amount of money.
came up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Honey.
Jim talked about the plan of conservation development. The body cam, dash cam, we have all the, we've gotten all of the equipment for this first round. And the rest of the money has been encumbered, knowing that we are gonna have to spend that over the next few years.
Did you skip over the downtown resilience?
Yeah, I don't really have too much to
Okay.
say about that one. I'm just kind of hitting the high points of these.
Gotcha, sorry, okay.
So if you remember, the body cam was a 10-year contract with Axon. Phil Pyre, we are starting to spend out of here to make sure that we utilize all the money that's been allocated through ARPA to the Phil Pyle. Rooster River, trying to remember exactly if this was within the time of the past meeting that we had, but we officially purchased that property on Villa Avenue. The sidewalks the sidewalks for Southport and Stratfield, there's been an increase in the Stratfield project, and we can talk more about that at a later meeting. But there's
I'm
been
sorry,
a
could I
pretty
just,
significant increase there.
Rooster River, would this property, what'd you say, Caldwell, does that fall under any detention area project? I mean, if this FEMA grant potentially doesn't happen, we could probably put more money in Rooster River detention if necessary to acquire that property. We took the Villa Avenue property out of that account.
So what are you asking? What's your question?
I mean, would that property qualify like the Villa Avenue under the Rooster River detention area if we were not able to get funding from FEMA, any grants from FEMA?
Not
For
Villa
the other
Avenue,
one?
the
You're talking Camden Street?
Yeah.
Camden Street, yeah.
I'd have to go back and look at I don't want to say either way, and what the understanding of the boards was when we presented this. I'd have to go back and look at that.
Because you're under on it, like the playgrounds are all done, and it's about $100,000 under what was forecasted to be spent, budgeted to be spent.
Yep. Yeah, we don't want to, rush to reallocate money at this time, knowing that, like I said, Stratfield there's going to be an increase in Stratfield, and so, we're kind of evaluating these things as we go on, but, I don't want to end up in a situation where we reallocate money to something, and then all of a sudden something else is over budget, and we have to take money from where we just sent it and give it back, and, it becomes a comical in a not good way, and,
On that Rooster River, though, can you just, so the 3.2 million, I'm trying to understand the notes in here. It sounds like, and maybe I'm not reading this right, that 3.2 million was targeted for certain things, and the scope has changed a little bit because some things have been evaluated and they're not gonna work. And I guess what I'm wondering at this point, so we have 2.8 million. Is there a plan for the 2.8 million at this point? I can't tell from the notes.
There,
On the engine, on the Rooster River?
Yeah. Are these things that are being talked about in the notes, is that $2.8 million worth of stuff? Or, because it says here, some sites have been deemed not cost-effective, require redesign or removal from scope. So what does that mean, I guess? in
That's, I
relation-
think, going to be a question more for Bill Hurley.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So the
maybe.
bottom line is that we purchased that property on Villa Avenue. We are right now in negotiations with Deep because where we want to put the basin along the edge of Tunxus Hill Park, where there is already wetlands, they are saying they want us to build it right in the middle of the field and take the field out. And so we're like, yeah, no. So we're having discussions with them. It's not that it's not going to happen, it's just we're going to have discussions with them about certain things. But for the most part, the way I understand, everything is on target. There's going to be a basin up at Fairchild Wheeler, then there's one at Owen Fish Park, then we're going to have that one at Villa Avenue's property, and then one at Tunxus Hill. And then he's working to try some other things about getting easements. He sent numerous letters to all the neighbors there and asking for easements to go in their backyards. Like maybe 5 people have sent it back, which is actually ironic because the people who email and complain the most are the ones who didn't send it back. Anyway, so I don't think it's changed so much as that there's just permitting issues that we are waiting on, and
Okay. No, I
potentially
appreciate
if it
that, yeah.
becomes a standoff between Deep and us, then we may have to
Yeah.
recalculate what we're going to do.
Yeah, and I think what I was trying to get to, and I completely appreciate what Jared said about not prematurely reallocating
Right.
money, because obviously some of these things still are in early stages. They might turn out to be more expensive than they look. But I guess in terms of the status, it's just, I was just trying to get a sense, especially on some of these larger ones, like the playgrounds are easy because they're done, right? So you know that this is extra money, but some of them, and I don't know if we need another column in here or whatever, but, some of them are definitely going to turn out to be more expensive. Some of them may change scope. So just in terms of status, as we move along and go forward, that would be helpful to know. Like, it sounds like what you're saying is that we're going to spend this $2.8 million on Rooster River one way or another.
Well, yes, and I would say that most definitely, because there's 3 phases to it.
Yeah,
And we need to
right.
keep
Okay.
moving. Obviously, you're aware of how bad it is. It's a situation that we have to deal with, and
Yeah.
hopefully we can continue on as we meet the needs of the first phase and then go to the second phase. You'll start moving down toward the business districts down there in Kings Highway where all those businesses got flooded. And so there's a lot of work that needs to still be
Yeah.
done.
No,
So
that's good.
Not in this, I would say definitely not in this instance.
Okay.
We will
Yeah,
use
just
every
trying to-
dollar.
Yep,
And
understood.
maybe then some.
Yeah, it's just, as we go along here, I would expect that the numbers will change because of new estimates, up or down, or as things get completed, they'll be over or under. And if there's a way to, understand what those pieces look like, that's good, but, okay.
Right, and and just to piggyback on what Christine was saying before, we just found out very recently that the fiber optic was going to be way more expensive than what we had anticipated and
Yeah.
put aside funding for. So we want to reallocate some of that money, and we're going to talk about that, and that's something that we could probably talk about right now, that I did talk to you already about, that we want to reallocate some of that money to complete the Four Corners project at Stratfield, because that came in way over, that project. And so that's a project that's longstanding and something important to that community. So we were considering reallocating some money, some of the money from the stage that didn't get appropriated, and then some of this fiber optic money. And then my administration is going to sit down And we're going to look at all the projects and see what potentially else could be given additional funding to, but with the caveat of keeping, I would like a sizable chunk of a buffer. And we had this discussion in our staff meeting yesterday. How much of a buffer do we think is going to be needed? Because with all the inflationary costs and the supply chain issues, that buffer may need to be larger than normally we would consider. So, but
So-
that's something will come.
Got it.
We're not going to just, obviously, we come before the boards for any reallocation, and then with the rationale about why we're doing this, what we're going to keep as a buffer, because we think things are going to come in over that we've already agreed to do, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. And Jared, maybe if there's almost a transfer column, so for example, if town and BOE fiber optic network, if that project is scrapped, then the money will be transferred out of there. Some of it goes into a contingency line, some of it goes to, into a Stratfield line. And then, like the playgrounds, to Mark's point, if those are done, the remaining amount can be cleared out of there and put into the contingency line so that the buffer, if you will, is all in one place, and we know, how much is available to cover overages on these other projects, you
Yeah,
know?
we'll definitely indicate that. We just don't have anything to transfer at this point, and we don't have
Yeah.
a specific proposal in mind right now.
I totally understand, just anticipating that,
Right.
I mean, that's inevitable, right? Because not everything's
Right.
going to come out, okay?
Yep.
What is, sorry, the Fairchild Wheeler, what is Bridgeport committing to and that part of the Rooster River detention area?
They're helping us with some stuff, but I can't remember the exact figure. I think trying to remember now.
I don't remember.
It was in our presentation on ARPA.
Which one are you on?
They're contributing
can
toward the
find out.
Rooster River project. I think it's 700,000. I know it was in our presentation to the boards. I just can't pull the number out of my head. But they are contributing something.
We'll follow up with you on that. Okay.
Hello, Mr. Walsh. You look like you're in London. Where are you?
Boston College.
Oh, is that Boston College?
It's either that or Trinity and.
He's there to mourn the Queen.
No, he's a Boston College
I'm
guy,
okay.
so he's got his green thing.
All right, so we got the playgrounds, we just talked about. What else of note here? HVAC. So we're, with the HVAC for the Board of Ed, the HVAC item is the $1 million that we committed to the Board of Ed for their HVAC program, and so that's just a matter of coordinating timing of the contribution to them. Tom Bremer has been working on the electric vehicles and charging stations. We've awarded a contract for the stations. We're continuing to search for dealerships that have electric vehicles available. I don't know if you want to say anything more than that. Are you good?
No, I think that's it. I mean, we expect to begin construction of the infrastructure now, and we hope to be done in February, March. As I've often said, people say, why don't we have electric cars? I'm like, I can't plug them into a tree. So I need the infrastructure rebuilt. So that's going to take a few months. And we're putting, Connie and I and Frank are putting together a list of where all the vehicles are now, who has access to those vehicles, and we're going to develop exactly how many cars we're going to buy and that sort of thing to replace that much larger fleet with a much smaller fleet. But it's very difficult to find cars. You can find them on paper, but can I come down and pick one up? Not really. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. And it may be that I have visions of, we'll buy 10 or 15 cars, all the same type, and I think that's probably not going to occur. We're probably going to be able to get 2 of this type here, and 2 over here, and 2 over there. So we're going to very aggressively start looking at those in the next few weeks, and hopefully by February, March, we'll be able to have some in the back lot.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, is there a reason that, or maybe we have, not explored a fleet program with a manufacturer like General Motors or Ford versus going to dealerships and going direct through fleet programs?
I can't, there is no fleet program that I'm aware of. We've looked. There's no state contract, nobody's on a state
No,
contract.
we tried to go through the state
Because of
bidding.
the electric portion? Because there's plenty of fleets for gas cars, but
Absolutely.
Right.
We're going electric, and there are no such programs that I'm aware of.
Usually we go through the state system
Yeah.
on these things so we can get a better deal, but they have nothing. Like, they were like,
There is
nothing.
no state contract for electric vehicles.
so it's not even like they're not available, there's just no contract,
Can't
period.
get any.
Well,
Okay.
of course they're not available, and everybody's up in the price, so,
Okay.
it's a $40,000 electric vehicle. Oh, you want one? How about 43? That kind of thing.
Yeah, they become really
I don't
popular
pay-
over the past year, and
I
like
could get-
everybody's
I guess
buying
I could
electric.
get cars if I was willing to pay, 10 grand over a sticker, but we don't have that kind of budget.
Thank you.
question, where are the charging stations, where's this infrastructure going to be located?
We're
Right
right
out here.
behind this building, in the
Okay.
parking lot back here. If you drive back there, there's one island of trees and stuff, and we're gonna put them right in the center of that island.
So all the cars will be here?
All the cars will be
Okay.
here. Now, we are also, as part of the program, because we've been able to squeeze a little money out of the ARPA, we're putting a pilot, what I'm calling a pilot infrastructure over by police and fire. They're gonna share one charger each, for each. And we're also putting one down at DPW, because if we're correct that electric's coming, then it's coming everywhere. And so, obviously, this is where we really wanted to start saving money and get rid of this old fleet. But we know, everything I'm reading about DPW trucks, for instance, they're all going electric. You read about it almost every month. So, since we have the ARPA money, we've squeezed out some of for infrastructure only. So I wanted to get some charging stations down there. And then I'm basically going to see how much ARPA money is left in terms of the town fleet, and if there's any extra money, if I can get a police car or something like that, electric, we'll try to squeeze it out of the ARPA money. And if not, we're not buying anything unless, we'll put it in the budget. It's going to be all operating budget, so if we can squeeze it out, and I don't have any ARPA money, then we'll try to stick it in the budget.
I have
And if
a-
it's this year or next year.
Suspect we're not going to be squeezing anything.
There is
I
some.
don't think there's going to be extra money.
There's grant money available through the state. I don't know if you remember the Volkswagen lawsuit. The state got a good chunk of money from Volkswagen, and so they created a program to help fund the expansion of electric vehicles and the electric vehicle infrastructure. So we're applying to the state for a grant related to the stuff that
Yeah, I forgot to mention
that
that,
Tom's
too.
talking about as well, using with the help of our grant coordinator. So,
To try to piggyback.
That's
on top
underway.
of the ARPA funds.
Yep.
So we're hopeful that if that money comes through, then maybe we'll even expand it a little bit more.
And just one other quick, how many charging stations do we have on town property now?
You mean open to the public?
Yeah, we're doing an analysis of that.
Okay.
Because as you know, everybody was talking about it, and Connie's working on that for us, so.
Just
we'll-
roughly, like,
Yeah.
is it?
we've got 5.
Those
We
are
have 5.
stations, though, how many individual, and then we're trying to figure out how much is paid by the town, how much
And the
is,
Board of Ed has a few.
is it solar, how much is,
Okay.
yeah, we're trying to get that
So the
analysis.
town owns 5, but these 5 are not located in places where these new vehicles would expect to be charged? Right. Those were intended to be what? They're near town buildings for employee use?
Town employees.
Town employee use.
That's-
Which
no, our
ones? The
cars
ones that we have
we're
now?
gonna buy, obviously, if you look out here,
Here,
we have
but
all our fleet.
yeah, I was just wondering, the existing stations, were they put there for?
For the public, for public use.
I put one in by Sherman Green years and years ago, because, this is great, electric vehicles coming. At the time, this was over 10 years ago, because I was here, it was like, that's a great idea. Of course, I never saw an electric vehicle there because they weren't really adopted. So it was a way for UI to start people thinking about it. And that has basically been in existence for a long time. So now, how was it selected, where they were put, I couldn't tell you. who was behind
Yeah, no, I
it.
didn't know if there was anything, as I know, now, new office buildings, for example, I don't know if it's mandated or not, but have to have they all have charging stations. So I just wasn't sure if that was something we were making available near town buildings, and if the purpose was for town employees, when they're working, they can plug their car in.
The idea behind this is we're going to bring in a fleet of electric vehicles.
This I understand, yeah, I was just kind of wondering what we had and what was existing, and I know you're doing an analysis, so, but it's 5.
Yeah, because I know
Yeah.
some members of the public want to know.
Yeah, it's 5, okay.
If we're footing the town, frankly, I want to know, if we're footing the bill for people to be charging their cars, because I'm not sure that's really what we
What
should be
was the
doing.
intent, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Jim, did you have something? Sorry.
Tom, thanks for answering the question about not knowing where the vehicles are coming from or what type of vehicles. But is there a range of price you don't plan on going above? Like, are we going to buy, we can't get things from Chevrolet or one of the other American car companies. Are we going to buy Teslas? And if so, is there a range of price, or are we just not going above $40,000 no matter what?
The short answer is, I really want to stay under $40,000, so I think Teslas are out. I also think Teslas are out for another reason, and that is, although they have adapters and stuff like that, their charging stations are usually a little different than the universal charging stations that we're putting in. I'd rather have one station and not care what the car is that plugs into it. It's just a lot easier to manage. But one of the questions that we're investigating is it wiser to lease these cars as opposed to buy them? Normally, I would say we should buy them because we're a town and we'll keep them for X amount of years. But on the other side, with electric vehicles, I don't know where the electric vehicle market's going to be 3 or 4 years from now. So it may behoove us to lease them for 3 years at a lower cost if we really think that we're going to have a much wider selection and a cheaper selection in 3 or 4 years. But I'm kind of talking off. This is a conversation we're having. We haven't done the financial analysis. We will, of course, do such a thing. But these are kind of the thoughts that are running around in my head. But yeah, I'm really, I've been asked to, can we get some Mach-E's, the Mustang Mach-E's, which are about 65 or 70 grand, and my answer is no, they're just way too much money. So we're trying to stay, the original idea was to stay under 40
Excuse me, who
grand.
asked you for that? Was that you?
Chief Cal
Trying-
Morris.
Oh, the chief, huh? Well, the chief's not getting that.
Boy, they're really fast, and I went, really? Okay, good.
Hey, geez, got called out.
But the original plan was to stay under 40, so that's really what I'd like to do.
Right now, Jim, Bremer gave an update to us in the staff meeting, and like he says, there's one car here, there's, maybe a Honda, we can get maybe a Chevy, we can get a Toyota. So obviously, the original plan was to try to get a fleet of the same cars, but that may not end up working out. We may have to pluck different ones because we are up against a deadline of when we need to spend the money, and we do want to do this, so it's a priority.
I don't know a lot about electric charging stations, but do you have any concern about it being just close to where there's potential flooding back here? Do you get, we have a severe storm. Is this potentially?
We're in a flood zone, so is the police department. Yeah, that's a real concern, and so we're doing whatever. That's part of the RFP in terms of putting in those stations, is to try to make them as
Weatherproof?
waterproof as we can and that sort of thing. But again, if we have, like Florida, if we have 4 feet of water, we're going to have a problem. But no, it is a concern, but we're doing everything we can to take.
Have you looked at any other locations around town, that higher ground that might be?
The problem is, most of the employees, if not all the employees
Are
that
here.
have access to the cars are here. So that's the problem. Unless we want to move town hall to something, no.
Took on
Any other questions?
No, that was the only question I had. Thanks, Tom.
Yep.
You answered the other ones during your presentation.
All right. I'll skip down to the Town and Board of Ed fiber optic network. We had budgeted 2.4 million. When we got the bids, they came in at about 3.3. And so we looked at the analysis that we did to determine that under the old budget, that it would have been beneficial to us to do this. And now it's not. It's just, first of all, it's going to cost us $900,000 more, and then it's going to create a network of fiber optic that, we don't know where that's going to be 10 years from now or 15 years from now, if it's going to be outdated, if it's still going to be used or usable. And so we're going to decide to move on from there and deallocate or reallocate this money to something else. And Brenda had mentioned Stratfield as a possibility, so that's that may be an option, and we'll come to you with another more defined proposal for that.
How much
Jared-
was the Stratfield over?
It was over about $600,000.
Jared, can you just remind me, was that fiber optic was just an upgrade of our infrastructure? It wasn't bringing anything earth-shattering, right? Or it was just kind of bringing us up to date?
No, it was a change in the way that we pay for and the equipment that we use, where right now we lease from a company. This was going to put in our own fiber optic that we would own and be responsible for, but we wouldn't have to make the lease payments. We would no longer make and so that would be the savings to the town. So, the analysis that we did at the time was where the break-even point is of the savings that would accrue to us over the years versus the upfront cost of purchasing this. And it's just, at this point, it doesn't make sense with the additional costs that the bids came in at.
But in not doing this, it's not going to cause any critical issues or failures with communications, right?
No.
It's simply
No, we still
not
have.
feasible anymore.
Yep, we still have fiber optic. We're just leasing it from another company. Yep.
Do you know what was driving the bid to come in so much higher? I mean, right now, we're hearing so much about supply chain issues. Do you think that cost of materials, or we were just off on the original estimate?
Yeah, I assume the bulk of it, I don't know for sure, but it would make sense that the materials are a large portion of the cost, and that's probably what's driving it. We had reached out to get an estimate from one of the companies early on in order to arrive at this number, but it was just that. It was an estimate based on what they knew at the time, so.
This is Jim Walsh. Can you tell me what the savings were per year that we were talking about that made this look like it was worthwhile to do when we originally put this on the ARPA list?
So the
Monthly, yearly savings on the lease.
so the Board of Ed and the town's contracts weren't exactly in sync, so the town side would start accruing more savings earlier. We were on a 2-year contract, and the Board of Ed was going out 5 years, which was fairly typical. So the town would start seeing savings of, memory serves me correctly, about $120,000 a year. off the bat. And then the Board of Ed would be about the same. It was about the same amount of money that they would be saving.
So 240.
So roughly 240. Yeah, yep. With at the 2.4 million. But and again, it's not just about the money and doing the financial analysis, but if satellite becomes prolific and widely used in 10 years from now, it could make fiber optic obsolete. And so, there's a risk there as well.
Well, it just seems to me that we just had a new company come into the town in the last year and a half, Net2Go, who did an entire fiber optic. They put fiber optic on every telephone pole in the town. So they obviously don't think it's going anyplace. We also just had Optimum, which also just further fiber optic the town and is now starting to market it. And they don't seem to think that it's going out of style. So it just seems to me as though we've got two major companies that seem to think it's going to be around for a while. And we'd probably have a savings, we'd break even, well, number one, it'd be free money up to the 2.2 or 2.4, and then it would be another $800,000.
Well, we need 900,000. I don't know where we're going to get that.
I mean, I would just.
The savings are enough, we could use some at a surplus.
But that's a fairly long payback
It
period,
is.
I think, because you're talking about undiscounted numbers, So if you were to, which is not the way you would look at it, right? So it's that could be 20 years or more to get a payback on that. I would say if you were to do the analysis and look at the, kind of the cash flows. If you discount those cash flows and those savings, I bet you that's a 20-year payback at least, if you have to pay another $900,000. So it's, maybe the fiber optic's fine. It feels like, there might be, if that was purely a play to save money, then there might be other
Right.
opportunities for the 2.4 million, just my personal opinion, but.
And that was most of the reason,
Yeah.
was the savings.
20 years seems like a long time for a payback, and I don't want to be here 20 years saying, hey, is satellite come around? And we're still paying $240,000. It's not going to be $240,000 because these contracts are all going to change over time, and they're not going to go down. They're going to go up.
Maybe. Fiber might get cheaper.
Jared, can you get us the last two increases from the Board of Ed and the town side and just send it to us, what the increases were from one contract to the next?
Sure.
Yeah, listen,
Yep.
maybe we can have, Dave come and speak to us a little bit more about it. My memory is really foggy about when we went through all this. Dave obviously is much better at explaining this, and all we heard was there's 900,000 more, and we were like, pull the plug. So, listen, if there was 900,000 left in the whole ARPA thing, maybe we have that discussion, but it might be fair to have Dave, might be a good thing for all of us to have a little update from Dave on it.
And there's opportunity costs there. There's $2.4 million that we could, we've got a large capital plan too, that could be used somewhere else.
It all comes down to priorities. So, we also have $240,000 expenses flying out the door every year for our communications.
Right, I think having Dave talk to us a little bit about why he originally wanted us to go after this, if there's something besides that, and if that money, if we would have that sort of savings every year going forward. Obviously, I don't know, that amount of money is a significant investment. But I think it would be helpful to have Dave talk about it.
That'd be great. And then by that time, we can do some cash flow analysis and some present valuing of this stuff and figure out what.
Yeah, I think it's good to have with the discussion, because we do obviously have a long capital list of projects that we need, so getting that information, I think, will be helpful for the group. Who do we have on
All
the
right.
next, what's the I can't remember.
Next group.
The rollout, how does it, who's the next, who's supposed to be on the next meeting?
Did you guys, were you,
Did you switch?
You guys are next?
You had us on November 10th, and I had mentioned that I couldn't be here on the 10th.
Correct, so we switched,
You switched Parks, you said you switched Parks and Rec.
right, so who,
I have to look at the,
Parks and Rec is next on the 10th.
all right, so I think,
on November 10th?
Yes.
You guys are, yeah, so Board of Ed is the
Board of
next
Ed's the
meeting, right?
16th. November 16th.
Got it.
Oh, I thought you got moved up earlier. Oh, okay, because you couldn't be here on the 10th. Got it.
Correct, okay.
so I think that covers the highlights of ARPA.
What's that? Yeah,
I can't be before parking.
yeah, it's
I mean, listen, worth listening to,
definitely, yeah.
because I don't remember,
There's
actually.
no shortage of options.
All right, the last sheet that you have is the review of approved capital projects.
This one, Jer?
Yes.
This one?
Yeah.
So these, we have the front side is FY '22 projects broken up into non-recurring, less than $1 million, and then capital of greater than $1 million. And then the backside is '23, so we're looking at the last 2 years. I don't know, I don't have a whole lot to say about these individually. If you want to take a look at this and have any questions, or happy to answer what we can.
These self-contained breathing units, were we looking to get more of a higher grant there for those?
That was the original amount. That's it. That was as proposed and as adopted was the amount there.
Yeah, reimbursement.
It wasn't a full reimbursement.
41, net cost 116.
Yeah, I thought that one was
I thought-
really time-sensitive. I thought we were going to try to,
Right.
they needed that immediately. Or maybe I'm getting that confused with another one. I guess I'm just surprised we haven't,
It could be a supply
I
chain.
thought they were going back for more money there, but maybe we can follow up on that.
Is that,
Yeah, we can check with fire.
who was that, fire, right?
Fire, yep.
I don't know if there's a possibility to put a status column on these like we have on the ARPA one.
I'm going to get that, that's in process, actually,
Okay.
working with IT on that.
It's a new chart today, so.
Yep.
Yeah, so the fiscal '23, less than $1 million, those were the ones that we approved in, what, March or April this year? And then the fiscal '22 were the ones that we approved, so those approvals are about 18 months old, right? So,
Yeah, probably about that.
yeah, so those were, I think, maybe, say, March of '21. So I guess, and this is just maybe more of a question for when we update the status, just trying to understand, there's a handful on here that don't have anything expended or encumbered, or they still, what's the expected timing, that sort of thing.
Yep.
And then the ones that are remaining, are they done, or are they have amounts remaining? Obviously, some of them are not, but, some of them may be ongoing long time, for a while, but like Independence Hall office renovations, that's,
That's been starting to, we were talking about that earlier. starting
right.
to be
And
expended.
just as an like, is that a 3-year project, a 4-year project?
Well, that would have been, it was delayed because of COVID, so we didn't start it.
And that, no, that's fine.
But it
Just-
is,
just-
it's been happening.
Yeah, just
so-
trying to understand where the cash flow falls and the bonding
But
falls.
then you got like the 8 million for, fill pile, that's sitting there, waiting.
And these, we follow the same process with these projects that we do with the over $1 million, so there's not a full there's not a full issuance of bonds for
Right.
the entire amount of non-recurring.
But that
Projects.
8 million, we didn't authorize a bond for that, did we?
For what, for remediation?
Yeah,
No,
okay.
nope.
So these were on the list, but these are not all approved? Is that the only one, are there others that aren't approved? Because it looks like most of these we approved, maybe except for that remediation one.
Yeah, remediation was one of the ones that we talked about in the spring, when we first started this
Right,
group.
but we didn't
and-
approve a bond on.
That's right,
Okay.
yeah.
But the rest of these all had a bond authorization approved, but the bonds may not have been issued yet, depending on where the project is.
Right.
And why do we have that in there?
What?
Why do we have the 8 million in there if it wasn't appropriated during the 22?
Because we're going to have to, it's part of it's still part of the capital plan, and we're still going to,
You could probably take it out of here, I
I
think.
think you could take it out of 22, though,
Because we've got the 7 million up in a few years from now, right, on the main one?
for
the new
for
one?
bonding.
For bonding.
Yeah, that's the way it's going to
Yeah,
work
so
out right
like
now.
you don't, oh, this has reimbursement, yeah, so I don't,
Right.
yeah, okay. Because obviously this didn't happen in fiscal '22 anyway, so I think it might be, that's to Christine's point, I think if you have totals, it'll be good, because that one I think is,
Have some of these 23 projects, have they all been bid on? I know I heard that the tennis center light replacement came in twice that amount? Is that-
Yeah.
Yeah, every project's different, and we will get a status column in here, so you'll be able to see in the future what's happening with each of these, but the tennis project is something that we will, we're going to be proposing to increase that authorization. It was about double. We had 100,000 in there, and the bids came back around 200,000.
Is there any other questions on these sheets?
Yeah, on the fifth is Jim Walsh on fiscal year 22, the less than $1 million. The townwide facility audit plan was for 400,000. I see we spent 115,500. Is the rest of that going to be like spent this year, or is it comfortable?
So the way the authorization for that was written, the whatever balance was left over, if there was to be a balance from the audit itself, that money could be used to pay for some of the projects that are recommended by the audit. And so that's factored into was factored into the amount that was requested and approved last year for the actual repairs.
so
But the
Jim,
rest of that money will be spent this year?
I mean, that'll be to the extent that we can, that will be the first money out the door.
yeah, Jim, I don't know if
So
you
they-
remember, but we had an authorization that we approved in the spring. Remember, we had it was a piece of the facilities audit, and it included a bunch of different projects in it. So we had one authorization for a bunch of different projects, and the backup to that showed that, it showed all the amounts for the different projects totaled, and that it factored in this 284,000 as part of the source of funds, because it was the, leftover. So I think, going back to the format of this, I think where we have something like that, to me, this is not really remaining. It's sort of transferred to another project, because this is for the audit, so that might be helpful just to show it, because it's hard to keep these straight.
Yep, so if you look at the FY23 capital, greater than $1 million, that's where the authorization is for those projects, what we call the priority one projects.
So the townwide facility upgrades, but basically that amount of that authorization, you have to take that plus the remaining amount from the audit together, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right,
And those would cover the things
The
that
priority
were
ones.
in the plan
yep,
for that project.
that's right.
Steve Stars.
Next year? I mean, this current year, this fiscal year?
Current year, right.
Pretty soon, that 100 and, I mean, the remaining balance of 284,500 is going to be saying encumbered, correct?
Yeah, that would probably make sense.
I mean, I think we'll see the status, right? Because wasn't a big part of that the senior center on that one?
It was.
Yeah,
That was some of it, and that was also factored into the authorization. So, and, you know, in talking to James Ryan and to John Marsilio, these projects are, you know, like everything else, are probably going to take longer to finish than what we had planned. So this authorization is probably going to be spent over a period of a couple of years. And we've adjusted the long-term plan to factor that in as well, where we've effectively broken up each of the priorities of spending into 2 years, whereas previously we had planned on doing this over a 5-year period, given the, you know, kind of 5 levels of priority. Instead of doing that, we've split up the money for each year into 2 years because, you know, we're finding that it takes longer to do these projects than what we anticipated.
Jared, to follow up on what you just said, is that why the Board of Ed, the Roger Ludlow Middle School roofs, they're in fiscal year '22 and fiscal year '23 under the capital, greater than $1 million? It's listed twice.
Say again what you're saying.
So that's it. But it's not expended in,
No, it's when it's authorized, so that fiscal '22, so the way I think about it is, well, no, I think that's wrong. So the.
Yeah, that may be in there twice.
yeah.
It's almost like, so the fiscal, so if you think about when we authorize these things, I think the fiscal year '22 is actually authorized in the spring of '21 for the non-recurring, for the small ones. And then the fiscal '22 greater than $1 million, those come in piecemeal, sort of throughout fiscal '22, right? So it's a little bit confusing because the authorization dates and the actual cash flow don't match.
But this is in here.
Yeah, it's in there
here
twice.
twice,
Right.
so I just,
There's a duplicate in there.
there's a, I
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
okay.
Yep,
Oh, okay, that one.
I see what you're
Gotcha.
saying now.
Yep. Yeah, so the totals have to be, that's where the totals would help.
Yeah, and that project was completed, so the money was expended.
So that was completed in fiscal '22?
No,
Fiscal '23?
it was completed this summer.
This summer. So it was approved last November,
So it
that
probably
project.
was, it belongs here in terms of to be consistent of when it was approved, but it got done late, because it got approved in
Right, so
fiscal
it-
'22, and it
right.
happened in fiscal '23, right?
I just don't want,
Yeah,
you know,
no,
to think that there's,
yeah,
So it should come off.
it should come off 23.
yeah.
This one should go off.
Any other questions?
No, just, yeah, going forward, I think the status, the totals, and, you know, if there's other open projects that are from earlier years, just to make it comprehensive, that we still have the money out there that are still going to be done.
Okay. think that's all we have.
I'm good.
Jim, do you have any other questions or any other information you want to have sent to you?
Nothing other than what I requested today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good. All right. Well, before we sign off, I do want to say that the town employees participated in Pink Pledge event today. And a lot of us, you'll notice, are wearing pink, and we donated, and I want to say we were looking to raise $500. We raised $1,090 from our town employees. So I'm
nice.
very excited about that, and appreciate everybody's participation and donations. So good stuff. Good stuff. All right, well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
All right. All right, Jerry. Signing off.
All right.